9 out of 10 sales calls was, well, I don't understand how I work with this person virtually. How am I like, it was a new concept that we were pushing.
Welcome to Business Briefs, where you get bite-sized legal and business strategies from our amazing guests that come with us every single week. Today, I have Brett Trembly with us with Get Staffed Up. I am really excited to talk to him because not only does he have an amazing business that's done awesome things, but he's also a fellow lawyer. And I just kind of love that. I love having nerdy conversations sometimes, but then also conversations that can be extremely helpful. And so welcome to Business Briefs, Brett. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Girija, thanks so much for having me. We can have a bit of both today. We can have nerdy combos and, we can have some good business conversations. So I'm glad to be here.
Both. So Brett, tell me a little bit about your business. Tell me how it started and why it started.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I'm a lawyer and I still own a law firm. I know a lot of lawyers end up not wanting to practice law and they kind of go into being a lawpreneur or consulting, those type of things. But I still have a law firm, 12 attorneys. We do business law, business litigation. And what I've done is grown that team enough. So we have a managing partner, and that has allowed me to focus most of my time now on Get Staffed Up, which is a virtual staffing company for lawyers and law firms. And I started this with another lawyer who was a good friend of mine. And we both had law firms and we saw a need for really good people, but it's hard to hire because every time you hire domestically, your overhead keeps up with your revenue. And it's kind of like you're just bringing in more business just to pay people and never yourself, and never really get to the level, or at least it takes a while. It's harder to get to the level where you have some margins, and margins is what allows us to pay ourselves, to provide, a decent life for ourselves and really separate ourselves from the business. So we got into this at the very end of 2017 and really spent 2018 setting up systems. And then July 4th of 2018, we said, all right, it's time. Let's give it a go. So we're still not even quite 5 years old, depending on when this airs. But when the pandemic hit in 2020, we were like, everybody's going to go on a hiring freeze. But it was just the opposite. Like 2 weeks later, everybody was like, I need virtual staff. And so we really just took off. And now we have over 850 staffers, as we call them, placed around the US and even some in Canada and the UK with lawyers. And we recruit primarily out of Latin America. So we're finding like English, like really, really great English reading and writing, talented people, similar time zones, who work hard and appreciate the job, and they come at a cost which is really palatable for us, here as lawyers in the US. I mean, it's a third, sometimes a fourth of the overhead to pay somebody here in the US. So as a friend told me, it's like a rare win-win-win, right? We're providing jobs to people where they live, really good people, and we're helping out lawyers and saving everybody money at the same time. So it's been a lot of fun.
I mean, I think you found such a great solution to a lot of the issues that we have, not just as business owners, but even lawyers, because I know you're specifically helping the legal industry, but delegation is one of them that we have a hard time letting go, but then also finding the right person. And so when we are looking for the right person in our business, how do we do that?
Yeah. Before I want to make a quick note, we have a lot of non-lawyers as clients. So I firmly believe that niches bring riches. And it's not that doing only one thing necessarily makes you more money. It's that when you're marketing, when you're trying to be all things to all people, then you're just spreading your money out, right? Mm-hmm. Different events for different people, different audiences, and it can be very overwhelming. So our marketing niche is lawyers, and we say for lawyers by lawyers. But because we do such a good job, and what we do is what every service business owner needs, right, is finding really great help. We've got probably 10% of our clients are other types of businesses who just want to work with us, referred to us, et cetera. So I do want to mention that. And in terms of, your question, what do we look for and how do we know who to look for? It really starts with an accountability chart or a flow chart of your people. I mean, some people call it an organizational chart, right? We call it an accountability chart because it's who's accountable to who. But if you're just hiring because you think you need someone, that's fine. But having a plan and putting it on paper, and just with a pen and paper, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You draw yourself at the top, and then you start listing out what are all the things that I am doing that I'm not good at, or that I don't love, or that drain my energy, that I could be delegating to someone else. Like, what am I doing that I could pay someone $10 an hour for, because I should be getting $300 an hour, or 250 or 450 or whatever it is, based on our training and our skill set in the market. And then starting to create those positions to build out the team. And then you start hiring to fill those strategic positions. The first thing, and we'll have a book coming out soon. And again, it's within the next 2 weeks. So by the time this airs, the book will definitely be out. It's called 24 Months to Freedom. And the first hire that I argue that everybody should make, because the book takes you through the 7 positions in a small business that you really should hire in order to get yourself out of just doing everything and being overwhelmed, is an executive assistant. Because if you're not protecting your time and you're not delegating all the things that are just constantly getting in the way of what you need, what you really need to get done or what you want to get done, it's exhausting. And that exhaustion just compiles and compounds. And then suddenly, you're just like overwhelmed and stressed all the time. And really, that's where you'll see the biggest, most immediate impact, is getting someone yourself. Because if you don't have an assistant, you are an assistant.
I think that's such great advice, because executive assistants, I know when I didn't have one, I was stuck in the weeds of emailing, replying, of figuring out and organizing. And in the online business world, that could be also called the OBM, the online business manager, just somebody who is helping you manage the office, manage the housekeeping, manage your clients and your customers. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. And so from there, when you are looking for, okay, this is the kind of person that I need, or this is the role that I need filled. I feel like when you're doing your first hire as an entrepreneur, sometimes it can be overwhelming and it can be scary also, just getting and having that conversation, getting in front of somebody. So what are some, tips that you could give on how to look for the right person, or maybe ask the right questions when you are interviewing someone?
All right. So the org chart, I should say, each little square you draw, right? You and the next person, you should list 5 to 7 things that person's going to do. And that's really your job description, right? If it's a receptionist, answer the phones, return phone calls, take messages, monitor my calendar to make sure that I'm not being interrupted when somebody calls, but I'm in, productive time, scheduling return calls, all of the little things. And potentially, like what you mentioned, email, what your executive assistant should really do is save you from the email monster that just takes over your life, especially for attorneys, right? We can just get sucked into doing 8 hours a day of emails if we're not careful. Is having just a short, easy job description of 5 to 7 repeatable tasks that person is going to do. The interview itself is really overrated. Really, really, resumes and interviews are the way that people usually hire, and they're the 2 most overrated parts of the hiring system, in at least my opinion, right? And we've hired thousands of people. Anybody can fake it through an interview, right? And it's like, well, tell me a time where you had a difficult situation and how did you handle that? It's like,
Yeah.
What are you really trying to get out of that, right? Well, you're trying to sense is someone's energy. Are they going to add to you? And do you want to, even on Zoom, like, do you want to interact with this person? Do they make you happy? Are they cheery? Are they energetic? Do they fit in with what you want? And also if they're competent. So give them tests. One time I heard an analogy. It was like, if you're the lead singer of a band and you need a guitar player, do you sit down and ask someone in an interview, well, who's your favorite guitar player? Or tell me about a time a string broke and how you handled it, right? No, you say, here's the guitar, play the guitar. Like, that's the interview. That's the test. So if you're hiring a paralegal, give them paralegal work to do and share the screen and watch them do it live. If you're hiring a receptionist, make sure, you're talking to them on the phone and then you call them and, you see how they're going to sound on the phone. If you're hiring an executive assistant, again, ask them to show how they would organize a calendar, how they would respond to an email. You want to test someone's competency as much as possible. And most interviews are not designed to do that.
Oh gosh, that's such great tips, and also very unpopular opinions, but I like it because truly when you see the resume, it's just a little glimpse of that person.
Yeah.
And so that conversation is very much necessary also outside of the resume itself. And you're right. Sometimes very common questions are, tell us a difficult time, or what is your weakness? And then, we've all been trained to say, well, I'm a perfectionist. So,
Yeah, like my weakness is, and then you list the strength. Like I am so good at organizing things that, I do it too much. And you're like, it's just so silly. I'll tell you a tip first, because I know we're talking to entrepreneurs here, but like what I tell people when you're going to an interview, you should be asking most of the questions. You shouldn't go in with the mindset of like, well, I'm just going to talk about myself and about my trip to Europe and about how passionate I am about helping the environment and how much I love my dogs. I'm telling you, nobody cares. Like nobody really truly at that stage of the interview cares.
yeah.
Now, if you're a good employer, obviously you care about your people and you're going to get to know them and their families, or at least who their families are, even if it's remote, and you're going to care about that person, right? But your job is not to sit there and give 5-minute answers and think, well, I didn't stumble too much or have too many ums or ahs, so I really did great in that interview. It's not about how well you can speak. If you go in there very inquisitive and you ask questions as the interviewee, well, what is the best part about working here? What's the culture like? What is my day-to-day going to look like? How do you see me adding value? How am I going to know if I'm doing well in your job? The right employer is going to be blown away because they're going to say, wow, this person's really sharp. And that's what I'm looking for also when I'm interviewing somebody, not someone who's so focused on themselves, but seems like they're wondering how they're going to add value to the business.
Gosh, great advice. I feel like lately I've seen a lot because I've have a staff, and I also have a team of lawyers as well. And a lot of times people coming in, they don't even research the company they're applying for, which blows my mind that you have zero idea for what you're applying. And it also shows a very disinterest and apathy towards whatever you're doing. And I don't understand that. And so
I think there's some employers have a mentality of they should be entitled to great employees, as if other people were put here on this earth to just like work their whole lives for that employer. And I hate that mentality. Like, I think you need to work hard at providing a great atmosphere and really earning your people. But then on the other hand, some job seekers have an entitlement mentality. Like, where are all the jobs waiting for me? Like, well, I don't know much about you because I've interviewing 10 times this week. So like, what do you have to offer me? I'm with you. It's just a huge turnoff. The person that really has done their homework and knows about your culture and wants to work with you, that person is going to, flattery is a funny word because most people are like, oh, I'm immune to flattery. But if somebody is like, Girija, I love, the stuff you post online, your team looks happy, I love your core values, I really see myself working here. You're going to be like, wow, this person's really smart because they were able to see how great my business is.
Yeah. I cannot agree with you more. And it's there. You're connecting with them on a level that is very personal because a lot of times people don't realize how much others are seeing or not seeing. And then on top of that, they're showing interest in the company. And personally, I'd rather hire someone like that who may have maybe slightly less, job skills or something like that, where I know that they are, because it shows that they're willing to learn. They're willing to seek out and get information and move forward also.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's such great tips. Now I'm going to kind of rewind a little bit because I know that a lot of your, the staff that comes, they come from Latin America. And so when you are connecting, because you're the middle person, essentially, you're connecting the staffer to the company. Yeah. How do you do that? Because I know we talked a little bit about energy placement and also the energies that are coming into your company and your business. So how do you protect that and become the gatekeeper of it?
Yeah.
And also the energy correctly?
Yeah. Well, what we do is we close our eyes and we pick names out of a hat. And then we say, here, Girija, here's your person. So we've got a really in-depth process just to get through our recruiting process. It takes 3 weeks. And we have thousands of applicants every week. So we really are hiring the top 1%. But then out of the people who pass, we put them through a week-long, what we call a test flight academy. And they have to have the skills. There's English tests along the way. Out of those people, then we start saying, all right, let's look at more closely at the individual skill set. And let's look at the interview process, because we have a pretty thorough interview process with our clients, and see what they need. And let's start matchmaking. But the way that we do matchmaking, it's not like, here, Girija, we really think this person will be great for you. Hope it works. We're proposing people to you. We're proposing matches. And we have also software that tells us, pretty accurately how this person is going to perform in their job. We say, hey, Girija, here's a proposed match. Look at their video that we took of them during their interview. That way you can kind of sense their energy from that video. Look at all their materials. If it's a marketing person, for example, look at their graphic designs, or if it's a video editor, look at the videos that they've done. If it's legal assistant, look at some other things that they've done, right? We give you a package and you're telling us yes or no, I want to interview them, not yes or no, I want to hire them. So then when you give us a first thumbs up, I want to interview them, then we set up the interview, we coordinate, and then you get to do what we said. You get to give them tests, you get to ask questions, you get to do whatever it is that you do as part of your interview process. And if you don't like that person, then you give a thumbs down and we just go right back to the well and we keep going until we get that second thumbs up, because you want to be comfortable with who you're hiring, right? So we're not just placing people, we're giving you the ultimate authority over who you hire.
Okay, lovely. And why is it so important about the energy alignment? I know that that's something that you talk about. And I actually love that, because I truly believe in the energies coming in and going out. And then that also just kind of, impacts your corporate culture as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, nobody really wants to work with a stick in the mud, right? Now, if they're part of your billing department and all they're doing is punching numbers and they're great at punching numbers, then yeah, that's a little bit different than if they're your receptionist. A receptionist needs to be really cheery and really helpful and organized. So the other thing that we're doing with the software is we are trying our best to match people who communicate well together, because communication is a two-way street. And what you say is not always understood, right? The comprehension really matters both ways. And if you have to explain to somebody 5 times, then it can be draining. And some, how like you meet someone and they just get you, and then other times you can't communicate with someone. It's not really either person's fault necessarily. It's just that we all communicate differently with different people. I'm a chronic under communicator, for example, because I'm an internal processor. So I think that if I just say, do this, do this, do this, people will just get what I'm saying and they can get in my head. And that's something I have to learn about myself and something I have to work on. But there are people who will get me more quickly than others. So, when I talk about managing energy, you want to work with somebody who's going to add value, not drain you. Oh, I gotta go back. Now, that doesn't mean you can just never explain things to people and then expect, they're not robots, right? They're not mind readers to be perfect. You have to work on your training. When you explain things to someone, record it. We're recording this Zoom call. Every time you have a communication with someone, you can record it and then place that in a library that has training videos, for example. And you say, go back to the video and watch that before you ask me a question. That's a good way to protect your time, because some people don't want to hire because they're like, well, it's just going to take all my time to manage this person. Well, not when you do it the right way. The first few weeks, yes, you're going to need to do a lot of training because, again, people don't just come off the shelf ready to know everything about your business. So, but anyway, that's a longer rabbit hole we could get down that we don't have time for today.
No, that's a great tip to actually record. And I know I work with a company and they're also, they love recording and sending Loom videos, for example. You could even just send a simple video from your camera phone as well. Loom is wonderful though, because you have it on your computer, you can have it on a device as well and use it and save it. But yeah, they love using it, but it's a great resource and it starts becoming part of your company's SOPs as well, which you should be developing as you go anyways.
Yep, exactly.
Gosh, great advice you have given us today. So many tips and insight in a quick way. And I loved all of that. But before we do end any conversation, I do have some extra questions for you.
Sure.
One of them is that what is one of the biggest challenges that you faced when you started this company? If you had any pushback or hurdles, and how did you overcome it?
Well, yeah, in it's hard to imagine now, but pre-March 2020, our biggest objection as a company was, well, how do I work with somebody virtually? Yeah, I mean,
I get it. Yes.
that was the crux of every sales call. 9 out of 10 sales calls was, well, I don't understand how I work with this person virtually. How am I it was a new concept that we were pushing. So
Yeah.
the pandemic did a really good thing for us because it wiped out that objection and you had to figure it out and you had to learn. And suddenly it was like, oh, so we were just in prime position. The other thing it did is a lot of people started saying, oh, look what these guys are doing. I'm going to start doing that too. So, like any business, you get copycats and competitors. And so that's like a new challenge, right? Is you got to continue in a good way to deliver more value than other companies who come along.
Exactly. And keep evolving and staying up with time. And I mean, I wonder if AI is posing any supposed threats to you at the moment, or do you see
I
any
think,
horizon?
well, I think hopefully AI is going to save people some jobs, right? But you can't just tell Chat GPT, for example, write all my blogs, put them on my website, and then that's it. Like you still need someone to review them, to edit them, to post them. So there's a lot of great things that AI is going to do and is already doing for people. It's going to enhance your marketing. It's going to enhance hopefully your sales. It's going to enhance your client communication. And it potentially could save on having multiple people in positions, but you're still going to need humans.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we go, I love asking this question to all my guests is what is your anchor? What holds you steady when things are chaotic around you?
I think the idea that good or bad, nothing lasts. So there's fun times in business and then there's times that aren't great in business. And social media, everyone always just pumps up the good stuff. But I like to talk about failure sometimes and just realize that, nobody's going to get through life without challenges. In fact, I was talking to someone the other day, a friend who's already booked a flight to space in 2025,
Mm,
SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin, they're doing commercial, space flights now. And we were just talking about when you're up in space and you're looking at the world, I'm guessing a lot of the feelings is like how small we are and how small, therefore, our problems are, right?
mm.
And how we're just floating in space. So, like, maybe I shouldn't spend so much time worrying about all the small things.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more, and a bigger zoom out lens can help put things in perspective so many times. Well, thank you so much, Brett, for coming here and sharing all of your wisdom and your tips with us. How can others connect with you and find you?
Yeah, it's easy. I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably what I'm on the most. So just Brett Trembly or Get Staffed Up. And the other thing I wanted to do, Girija, for your listeners is we created a landing page. It's getstaffedup.com/law chat. So for any of your listeners, if they're interested in finding out more about what we do, they can go to that special page. And not only will there be a link to the new book that I mentioned, 24 Months to Freedom, but a discount on our services just because they listen to this podcast.
Oh, that is so awesome. And I'm going to have all of those links in the show notes as well. And that's perfect. And again, I have just like literally taken away so many quick, easy things, like even just your, Zoom profile picture background thing. I don't know what you
Yeah.
call it, but like, I love it. I'm like, gosh, why am I not doing this? This is amazing.
Well, I you've got some quotes back there in your window. You're branding your. I don't know. You got to brand yourself in a way that you really
Yeah,
enjoy, right?
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Brett, and have a wonderful day.
You too, Gersha. Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
Take care.